If you like the podcast, you should head over to auburnpodcast.com. Zach and the gang are serving up extra Auburn sports goodness for Auburn podcast subscribers for as low as $1 a month. Check out auburnpodcast.com.
This is the Auburn Podcast, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast, brought to you by Auburn Undercover and ESPN 106.7. Zach Blackerby here with you, and I am joined by the boss man over at Auburn Undercover, Brandon Marcello. How are you, Brandon?
Good. Tired.
Yeah. Baby keeping you up?
No, I'm keeping myself up. Just working real late.
You don't have stuff going on now, do you?
I just feel like I'm running in mud. Like I stay up and research something for 3 hours and then nothing really comes of it.
Sure.
It's just, I don't know, whatever. It's football season.
Have you been interested at all or found it interesting the response of a lot of Auburn fans after Auburn beating a top 10 team? It's been
people who want to complain just keep complaining is the way I look at it.
Right.
And just be happy they beat a top 10 team. I mean, I couldn't imagine what it would have been like if they lost. Mm-hmm. And it certainly looked like it was going that way.
I thought it was going to go that way.
Because they were just not playing very well.
Sure.
But, they did what they had to do. The running game finally got cranked up there near the end, which is exactly what everybody wanted to see. And good things to build on, and they got what they, what the fans want. I mean, they beat a top 10 team in the season opener for only the second time in school history. Hadn't happened since 1957, so be happy about it. Enjoy it. Go to the Alabama State game. Enjoy the thrashing they're going to give them, and then pump up that game against LSU, because I think that LSU game is going to be a good one.
Right. I've been thinking all week, what does Auburn need to do against Alabama State? What can they do? And really the only thing I can come up with is avoid injuries. And you only have so much control over that, obviously. But, some people say, well, they really need to go out and run the ball against Alabama State. Well, they're going to. They're going to run the football well. They should be able to do anything they want against them.
Yep. I would say play mistake-free football, too. If they have a bunch of turnovers against Alabama State, that's an issue. If Jarrett Stidham continues to fumble the ball and does that against Alabama State, that's an issue. I think the one big thing that no one's really talking about is Jarrett Stidham fumbled the ball twice against Washington. Mm-hmm. And this is a trend now. It's happened in the last 3-4 games dating back to last season where he's had multiple fumbles. He didn't lose any against Washington. But if he had lost one against Washington, they'd probably lose that game.
Right.
Because that was one of those games where you have one turnover, you're probably going to lose it. And all
every possession's a big deal. Yep.
So, and that's going to be huge down the stretch here. I know Gus Malzahn keeps preaching about got to win these close games, and Auburn finally did that against Washington. But Jarrett Stidham, for as good as he did in helping Auburn, and he had 11 plays where he kind of helped them get out of broken down plays and made some right decisions. He also had those 2 fumbles that if he loses one of them, that changes everything. That erases those 11 good plays.
Sure. Yeah, because, we saw him not look great. I almost said struggle, and maybe that is a better word for it, but against Mercer last year.
Yeah, well, that was the game, if I'm not mistaken, where they turned the ball over a lot. And
that was an awful game.
It's a horrible game to watch.
Ugly.
But, that was early in his career. It's a little bit different now. I would say, here's the thing, like nothing but bad things could come from this Alabama State game, whether it be injuries or what if Auburn's offense or defense doesn't look as good as you thought it was. Mm-hmm. Then people start going, oh, my goodness, maybe they're a little overrated or whatever. But I would say that if some reason Auburn can't quite do what they want to do, especially running the ball, you need to start worrying a little bit, I think, about that offensive line and the running backs.
Is there anything Auburn could do from a production standpoint in your mind this Saturday as far as just specifically running the football, whether it's Cam Martin, Boobie Whitlow? Some fans kind of anxious to see possibly Asa Martin's debut for the Tigers. Is there anything they can do from a running the football standpoint where it'll be like, okay, they've noticeably gotten better? Or is it just, we got to wait and see till LSU?
Yeah, I don't think you're going to get a really good read on until against LSU. If they have a good game against LSU with Auburn, I think will be fine for the rest of the season. I just think that the only thing that you can really take from this upcoming game is even if they run for 300 yards, okay, that's fine. Tuskegee did that. Tuskegee ran for 300 yards. If Auburn can only rush for about 150, 175 yards against Alabama State, you need to start scratching your chin going, what the heck is going on?
Right.
And Auburn's got a lot of stuff to figure out on the right side of that offensive line. Starting at center, I think center is really the only spot where there's a competition really going on still, where I think Nick Brahms could end up being the starter even for that LSU game over Caleb Kim. Right guard and I think right tackle are definitely set. They just got to get better. But run blocking just wasn't up to par. Pass blocking was much better than I thought it was going to be against Washington.
Yeah, I mean, the pass blocking, it seems like it was either really good or they just took the play off.
Right. Well, Jarrett Stidham had, I think, an average of 2.29 seconds to throw, and I'm getting a little too deep here, 0.07 of those seconds were an addition of Jarrett Stidham being able to move a little bit in the pocket, whether it was running outside or whatever. And that was the second best average among all SEC teams last week. And
that's against a good team.
It's a very good team, and a lot of SEC teams were playing cream puffs.
Sure.
Number one team was Kentucky, and they played a cream puff, Central Michigan. So that's a good sign for our Auburn's offensive line, I think. They just got to figure out the run blocking, and I think Washington had a lot to do with that.
Now, I know you mentioned strictly the term competition at center, and I agree with you there. I don't think Horton had a good game at all, though, on Saturday.
He didn't. He was one of the worst graded offensive linemen, according to Pro Football Focus. I was saying the same thing throughout the game. I was watching him.
He got blown up every play.
Horton was just not having a good day. Caleb Kim did not have a good game in run blocking. He's okay in pass blocking. Obviously got all his snaps off, but run blocking, Horton, Kim, and even Harrell to a certain extent did not have good games run blocking. But Horton was technically the worst if you look at the grades and everything. Prince Tega was the best offensive lineman on the field by far.
Does that surprise you at all?
A little bit. I thought Harrell or Horton would have the best day at guard, and it was the exact opposite. So I thought Tega would be up there. But that was very surprising to me.
How long into the season will it be for them to kind of pull the plug or pull the trigger as far as starting someone else, whether it's at center, whether it's at running back, safety?
I think it could be as soon as the LSU game or maybe the week after against Arkansas. Now, safety spot I think they're okay with. Jeremiah Denson graded out pretty well. Daniel Thomas was graded.
He surprised me. He looked good.
Daniel Thomas graded out to almost to an elite level, according to Pro Football Focus. So I think they're fine there. Smoke Monday obviously did a good job in getting that sack late, but
sure.
I think they're fine there. What's going to be interesting is watching the cornerbacks, and especially against Alabama State. Do they rest Jamel Dean? With his injury and everything. Javaris Davis, who got injured in that game as well. Do they rest those guys and allow players like Roger McCreary and Christian Tutt to play a little bit more? I think they will. I'm interested to see how they do. Even though Alabama State cannot throw the ball very well, game experience is game experience. I think it's a perfect time to give them extended minutes.
I mean, what's the upside to starting those guys, the injured guys?
None, in my opinion.
I agree.
And I wrote this week in my column. I think they need to rest them. They need to sit them down and just don't risk further injury and worsening things, because it's just not worth it. I mean, you could put your second teamers out there or your third teamers out there even on defense and still win the game. And you might as well with Roger McCreary and Christian Tutt and get them some experience.
What do you anticipate from the starting running back rotation on Saturday? Because I just think it was very telling at the end of the game who they went with in key situations.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, Jartavius Whitlow had less than a dozen snaps. He only had 6 carries when he went in and had that touchdown run. and they knew what play they were going to run in. Like they put him out there and we're trying to figure out what we're going to run now. They put him out there with the idea, okay, we're going to run a play here for him. I do think that shows that their confidence in him is growing, and their big thing is that was his first college game. He was still trying to calm his nerves down. He even said after the game that when he heard the play call and knew what was happening when he went on the field, he said his heart was about to pop out of his chest. He was too excited, and Cam Martin was even have to tell him as he was coming onto the field, you just chill out, calm down. It's going to be all right. Just carry the ball, man, like you did back in high school. And heck of a run and running over JoJo McIntosh, their safety, to get that touchdown. Now, does that mean Jartavius, does Boobie Whitlow carry the ball 20 times against Alabama State? I don't know. I don't think so. I think Cam Martin will be their guy still. But if in this game they start noticing some differences in production and the way they run and the way they attack the hole, I think going in the LSU game is when you could see some changes. Yeah,
I think from a matchup standpoint, Jartavius Whitlow just seems to match up better against the likes of Washington, LSU, Georgia, Alabama, the actually good defenses, especially up the middle. And Cam Martin I'm guessing will be better really outside of those games. But at what point does Malzahn or Chip Lindsey kind of make the call, well, if Boobie Whitlow needs to be the guy in the key games, he should probably be the key guy all season long.
Yeah, I just, Gus Malzahn's proven that they just like to go with a bell cow running back, and I know they keep saying we're going to split the carries, but in the opener, Cam Martin had 22 carries, which is what they didn't want to do. According to them, they wanted to carry the ball 20 times or less. And he also had 5 catches, so he touched the ball 27 total times. And I think in this offense, what you're going to see is those passes are really going to be counted as rushes for them in their meeting room. You get 5 catches, and then you also carry the ball 22 times. To them, that's 27 run plays. So they utilize Cam Martin a little bit more than probably they were expecting. And of course, I was expecting, or the media was expecting, and fans were expecting. So, but I do think that number is going to start lowering a little bit as they get Whitlow more involved. I think they'd be crazy not to get Boobie more involved.
Yeah. It's interesting, just the eye test, watching the game, it didn't seem like Cam Martin was having that productive of a day.
No.
And then you look at it afterwards, like, well, he had 100 yards from scrimmage, but once again, 27 touches, you would kind of hope so.
Yeah, I mean, you touch the ball that much, you better average 3 yards. What was interesting is Martin and Whitlow both averaged 2 yards after contact. So you would think Whitlow would have been a little bit better, but Whitlow didn't get a lot of opportunities. Martin had more opportunities, and usually when you're carrying the ball that much, your yards after contact as a lead back in the SEC is higher than 2.
Right.
So keep an eye on that. I do think that Whitlow is much more, he's built more to have the yards after contact. And just listen, the run that'll stick out in everybody's mind, of course, is him bowling over a safety. Cam Martin had one good play where he kind of ran into a linebacker, I think, and they kind of bounced off each other and like stood straight up after they hit, and then Cam Martin put his head down and went down, whereas with Whitlow, he ran that guy over and carried him into the end zone. That's the difference between the two.
Malzahn announced earlier this week at his press conference that the receivers that had knee injuries over spring, Eli Stove and Will Hastings, are cleared to practice. Not expecting them back anytime soon, especially this week. What are you hearing from folks in the athletic department as far as when Auburn fans can realistically see them again?
They keep thinking about midway through the season.
Okay.
Which surprisingly to me would be sometime probably in October. But I don't know. ACLs are weird in that it's almost like you could predict. I mean, how long it takes an ACL to fully heal. It usually takes 18 months. All players come back within 9 months. But the ACL and replacing that cartilage usually is not completely ready for another 1.5 years. That's how long it is. But if you feel well enough and you can run and you want to do it and your knee strength, it's all about knee strength. Can you do this? Can you do that? That's what it's all about. But doesn't mean necessarily that what's going on inside your knee is not going to pop again, or it's going to be susceptible to another injury. I keep going back to much different situation, obviously, but Jerry Rice tore something, and then in week 1 back in 1998 or 97, and then came back week 15, and he shattered his kneecap in the same knee, and they were trying to say, no, it's not related, but it was related. Jerry Rice admitted later, yeah, of course it was, because the knee was weakened. Mm-hmm. And that's what it's all about. You got to make sure that knee is at the strength. I do think that Will Hastings is ahead of Eli Stove, though, based off what I'm hearing, and is really pushing himself to go out there. And
I mean, is there a chance that one or both of them don't play this year?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, anything's possible with the knee injuries. I mean, something could pop up, or they could go.
Would it be better for Auburn, like if Eli Stove or Hastings redshirted and came back next year after some of these older receivers have gone on and graduated?
Yeah, possibly. But I think if they want to win a championship this year, they believe that they got to get one of them back this year.
Sure.
And I think their expectation is that they're going to get at least one of them back at some point this year. And I think that expectation is they're going to get them back for their big stretch run in November when they're having to play Texas A&M, Georgia, and Alabama.
Last topic I want to discuss, then I'll let you go. This will be the first game from an Auburn perspective that we see some guys that in other years may not play, but with the addition of this new redshirt rule where guys can play up to 4 games and still be redshirted for the year. Who are some guys on this roster you think that fans will see this year opposed to maybe guys they probably wouldn't see in the past?
I think maybe I mentioned the cornerbacks and everything. Like Roger McCreary, I think he's like kind of a borderline guy that was going to play this year anyway. And even to a certain extent, a guy like Sean Shivers, maybe in the past you don't necessarily decide to play him, but because his speed is what it is, you go, hey, we can put him out there for 4 snaps a game. And then pick and choose the 4 games we do that in, maybe redshirt him, or maybe they don't redshirt him. Maybe he does well enough in 3 games, they go, screw it, we're gonna pull the redshirt off of him.
Were you surprised he got a carry last week?
No, I wasn't. Okay. And they set that play up from the beginning. They ran that same set in the first or second possession, and Stidham kept the ball. And I turned to someone in the press box next to me and I said, they're setting that up. Shiver's going to get the ball later. I was surprised Schwartz didn't play, but that's because they didn't run any jet sweeps. The freshman track star, I think they're going to run jet sweeps this week against Alabama State. The freshman we didn't see a lot of, though he did play, I think that could be targeted this week as Matthew Hill. Mm-hmm. I think he's a guy that could be a red zone buster for them, a zone buster in the red zone.
Sure.
Like Sal Cannella was for that touchdown catch. I think they got to get something more involved in the passing game there. But more importantly, I think Auburn's just got to run the ball better inside the 20s. So, they get inside the 20-yard line, and then they get a first down inside the 3 or 5 yard line. They just pound it in there instead of throwing the ball from the 17 over and over and over again, and nothing works, and then all of a sudden they're kicking a field goal.
Sure. Right. Brandon, where can people find all of the great content you guys put out?
We're at auburnundercover.com, and you can follow me on Twitter at @bmarcello.
Thanks for coming in, man. I appreciate it.
Yep.
This has been another edition of the Auburn Podcast.